Hi guys, welcome to yet another edition of the Quarter Point podcast. We've reached my age now, which is 40 editions, and they were still going young at 28, being 12
Yeah,
years
82
younger than me.
basically. 82.
But today we are discussing a fine young gentleman who, in his mid 30s, has now ascended to being the chair of ICC, who is Jay Shah, very own Jay Shah, who was the ex-secretary of the BCCI, and now he's been elected as the chair of ICC, that too unopposed. And Dave here has a poem for him, or a small quote for him, because he's been elected unopposed. And Dave, over to you for those kind words.
Hi, Pranay. Thanks for putting me in a spot because, of course, I'm somebody who craves the spotlight, isn't it? So the poem for Mr. Jay Shah goes on like this: Congratulations and celebrations. Finally, ICC will be even more powerful under your guidance. I'm not saying tutelage. Cricket will really come of age. I hope in those parts of the world where cricket is still to be played at a particular standard which the international level of cricket calls for. So I would like to begin this podcast by also extending my warm regards and congratulations to the youngest ICC president. What a massive achievement! Having said that, I think this decision comes at a time where the game finds itself at a very interesting crossroads sort of a scenario. So on the one hand, Pranay, and I'm going to bring you in soon in this because, of course, we don't have a guest on the show. So who else will I bring? Who else would I bring in? And Austin Chase declined our proposal.
Because
So
guests
on the
come
one hand,
opposed now, they're not unopposed, like Jay Shah is.
completely. So on the one hand, running the league cricket, the franchise cricket is rising, and on the other hand, has been this massive wave of talk about ensuring that Test cricket continues to grow. Test cricket does not exist only in the survival mode. So I think a very interesting challenge awaits Mr. Jay Shah as he soon is going to assume the role of the ICC president, unopposed and an emphatic moment for Indians. Indians around the world are celebrating, and why not? Because at the end of the day, हमारे हिंदुस्तानी भाई हैं भाई जो अपने करियर में अपने जीवन शैली में आगे बढ़ रहे हैं और देश का परचम लहरा रहे हैं वो अलग अलग दुनिया के कोनों में. So that's nice. But do you think that this challenge, this particular area that I pointed out, will actually be a massive responsibility that he'll have to now shoulder?
Yeah, Dave, definitely, because it's not only about being the head of one body, right? It's being the head of a body that has several bodies working for it, which
Right.
is the ICC. And I mean, as you rightly said, that he will have to work towards the development of the game with the lesser known cricketing nations also. And I feel that somewhere what will be really important for him will be a two-step thing. One is to promote women's cricket even more, which I think he's mentioned that in a statement that some of his energies will go towards developing the women's game. And the second thing is that I sincerely wish that Test cricket becomes a more level playing field. And what I mean by that is that it's not only
South Africa should get a five test match series soon.
No, so Dave, it's not only about ICC making South Africa get a 5 Test match series. It's about South Africa also having the infrastructure, the know-how, and the financial capability to hold a 5 Test match series, which unfortunately right now they don't, and they've only opted for a 2 Test series. And ICC has agreed to that. But my point is that, with all due respect, Jay Shah should look at making Test cricket a more level playing field. And what I mean by that is that the lesser known powers that play, so do be the likes of South Africa, Sri Lanka, New Zealand, Pakistan, they should be playing more regularly against the big three. And if possible, it shouldn't be a 2 match Test series. It should sort of at least be a minimum of 3. And it's upon the ICC to support these nations by giving them the money to have 3 Test matches. So that Test cricket is not only a domain of the big three. So that will become very crucial for Jay Shah. Well, everyone wants to excel at the pinnacle of the game, which is red ball cricket. And I mean, this goes unopposed.
Right. So I want to draw the attention of our listeners and viewers towards the statement that was offered by Mr. Jay Shah after he was elected to this eminent and prestigious post. And one of the paragraphs has certainly struck a chord with me. And I'm so it's a statement which has multiple paragraphs, of course. And he says one of the paragraphs that caught my attention the most is, we must champion the ICC's mission further by allocating more resources and attention to women's cricket, as you were saying, Pranay, and differently abled cricket. Together, we can empower these essential facets of the sport, making them not just viable but vibrant and thriving. Now, while that also beautifully points out to his creative writing abilities, and he's blessed with so much of that, it's really nice for him to have mentioned that, because most people weren't even aware, and you know that you would remember 2022 towards the year end, people weren't even aware that there was a blind cricket World Cup that was happening in India. And of course, Pranay, or the cricketers from your favorite country were there in India as well. And I got the great chance of interacting with South African cricketers. I got a great chance of interacting with our cricketers. And at the same time, I think Mr. Jay Shah, and it's like a humble plea to him, I hope that he knows who Mr. George Abraham is. I'm not talking about John Abraham, because everybody in Bollywood and the industry beyond it knows him. George Abraham, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, happens to be the godfather of blind cricket in India. He had established the foundations, the pillars of blind cricket in India well over 3 decades back in time. He was, I think, only 10 months old when he lost his eyesight. His life was struck with many challenges, one of them being meningitis. उसके बाद से उनका थोड़ा सा दिक्कतें और बढ़ी, और फिर वो completely नेत्रहीन हो गए. I had the honor of meeting this remarkable human being, who sadly the so-called journalists, the purists, and so many of them, I'm not saying everybody, but so many of them are not even aware of. The gentleman does not even have a Wikipedia page on his life, which actually is a life of inspiration. India is the most successful blind cricket team, and I would hope that there are other teams also that get to learn from India, and India gets to play several bilateral series events, and more events than they have been playing as on date in other parts of the world. And I also hope that during Mr. Jay Shah's tenure, the density and the complication which has happened between our immediate friends from across the border. I wouldn't want to call them enemies, because cricketers are not at fault when nations screw up in terms of diplomacy. And of course, Pakistan has left no stone unturned in terms of being a particular creature who just causes terror and all that. But the cricket team is not to be blamed. So I hope that the ties can somehow normalize. It's not just about the TRPs or about the rivalry. Of course, it's the age-old rivalry. But the 15-member squad is not part of some threat-causing event. The country from which they hail is part of that, and stadia around the world get filled instantly the moment you say India versus Pakistan. But let us also hope that under Mr. Jay Shah's tenure, and I'm sure that's going to be remarkable in the coming times to come, other teams also get an equal representation in playing this great sport of ours. Your thoughts, Pranay?
I completely agree with you. Like, speaking about India, Pakistan, maybe the first step that Jay Shah could take is for India to go to Pakistan for the Champions Trophy. I know there are bigger powers at play that are involved, but if adequate pressure and adequate sort of a roadmap has been chalked out in a way that it's safe to go there, and for the overall development of the game, India has to be a part of the Champions Trophy, then I'm sure things can work out, rather than just being the thing that, oh, we can't travel to Pakistan because of XYZ reasons. So I think that could be a good start, because as you rightly said, that a country might be something, but the cricketers of that country are something else. So it's important to see who you are and for what are you doing, and basis that you should be deciding whether you should travel or not. And second, as I told you earlier also in the podcast, I feel that the lesser known countries, as in not lesser known, but who play cricket, test cricket at a level less as compared to the big three, need to like start playing more of the big three and reach a level where Test cricket becomes more competitive. Because my only fear is with the rising T20 franchisee, Test cricket is losing its sheen. If you see the England-Sri Lanka matches that are happening, it's too much skewed in favor of England. And that's again something which bothers me, that Test cricket is not a level playing field. So what can we do to make this more competitive? That is something that Jay Shah should look at. And obviously the differentially able cricket that you were talking about, that needs to get its prominence, and women's cricket.
We need to.
Thankfully, they figured a destination for that World Cup, and it's happening in the UAE. So that's good news, because Bangladesh couldn't host it, and it was a little bit of a conundrum, which is finally being sorted.
Yeah, yeah, and at the end of the day, of course, the player's safety is paramount, and there is no two ways about it. So if the players do not feel safe in Pakistan, for instance, or given the recent upheaval in Bangladesh, if they don't feel, of course, it's not even a point of debate. But having said that, the unmitigated bias and the unresolved bias, and then let's face facts, troll and hatred which comes to cricketers from other regions who India is not best friends with because of no fault of the cricketers, but because of the fault of their governments, that issue may want some kind of an addressing. I want to now take the opportunity of taking the viewers and listeners to what has been a storied career for Jay Shah. And that's a fact, by the way. So we have some of the salient journeys, the milestones which have actually culminated in this tremendous ICC president role. But how did it all start? So in 2013, he became the joint secretary of the Gujarat Cricket Association. And ever since then, he's been instrumental in the construction of the Narendra Modi Stadium. Of course, the prime minister, the only, thriving and alive prime minister to have a cricket stadium in his own name. In October 2019, he became the secretary of the BCCI. I'm talking about Jay Shah, not Narendra Modi, for a change. 2021, he was appointed president of the Asian Cricket Council. 2022, 1 year later, my math is still right, he was re-elected as the secretary of the BCCI. And this is where something absolutely phenomenal happened in the world of the IPL, I beg your pardon, and the media rights. How so? Because it was this time in his career, in his tenure, Pranay, where Mr. Jay Shah led and oversaw the mega IPL media rights deal for 5 years, which was valued at a very tiny sum, 48,390 crores. The last time I earned 48,390 crores, I was running Tesla in the world, and Mars was a place where South Africa and West Indies played regular Test cricket. So I would like to bring you in to what has been a storied career, as I said a few moments ago. This is like remarkable. He's been consistently been out there in important, roles of governance of the game here, and this is what it has led to.
Dave, I think that's pretty phenomenal. 48,000 crores worth of media rights for 5 years. I think it's like testament to the kind of brains he has, and the way he is possibly trying to marry finances and cricket plus entertainment, which augurs well for
Right.
cricket as a whole. But my only point is that how much does finance have a role to play in cricket, and how much is the purity of the game important? That's something that's a very interesting debate, and that's something which needs to be done in the right measures to not make cricket only a financially viable asset. So like, while the IPL can definitely grow cricket in terms of the monies and in terms of the younger talent from India coming through and even from world cricket, but the thing is that, like, you have cricket in Brazil, you have cricket in Argentina. Recently, I was reading an article, you have cricket in Portugal. So what can the new ICC chair do to get these guys also to harness their skills and talents so that they can express themselves on the world stage? While definitely IPL will be the cream of cricket, so to speak, and maybe it'll go on for 100 years after we are dead also. But what's happening to these cricketing nations is also equally important.
So, something very interesting happened in the world of, in the world of the lesser known cricketing nations, should we call it, the cricketing nations who aren't yet there in terms of where the big three have come. So it was a proper T20 international game, and a Samoan batsman comes up with 39 runs scored off just 6 deliveries, in the process of which he, of course, breaks the inimitable, the Prince of India, Yuvraj Singh's record. 6 sixes were hit consecutively, and Baba Damle didn't take one single catch. But yeah, so that was a massive world record. So there is so much of talent which is there in other nations whose names don't read India, Australia, and England. Of course, it goes without saying. Now the question is, and you had a very pertinent point a few moments ago, Pranay, where you said that can we also help in bringing those nations up to speed with the level, quality, and the excitement of cricket which is being played here, and can we actually then strike a balance between the purity so that cricket does not lose its soul, and marrying it with this entertainment and hey, everybody makes money and everybody goes home happy kind of concept. So that's a very valid observation. I merely pointed this fact about the Samoan batsman, Darius Visser, by the way, is for the only reason for us Indians to know that talent exists around the world, and it is not only limited to our favorite patriotic team for whom our heart bleeds blue, the color in which you are decked today, supporting your favorite cricket team, which is India, not South Africa. So, what can be done to elevate those teams? So that's going to be a massive point. But at the same time, Pranay, no longer can we actually expect franchise cricket to take a back seat. Not that you were alluding to that point, and for the bilateral series to take over, because gone are those days. Now the template of cricket, correct me if I'm wrong, has changed somewhat. So I met somebody recently, and he was throwing so many expletives at the way the game has gone down and all that. And I would not want to use that colorful language because today is not holy. So he said that there would be a time where cricket would be broadcast on a general entertainment channel, not on the sports channel. So I said, okay, yeah, fair point. I mean, yeah,
Yeah, that's already
because
happening, right? Geo Cinema Geo Cinema, the OTT platform, is a generic entertainment platform. You have movies, you have.
I was talking about the mainstream broadcasters, like the TV channels as we know them.
No, that's not far. I completely
Yeah,
agree.
it's not far. Yeah.
But the important thing is that while franchisee cricket is important and it gets players to earn their big bucks, but slowly cricket is going the route of football. You see, so in football, you have franchisee tournaments happening throughout the year. And once in 4 years, you have a World Cup or a Euro or a Copa America. And that's only when people or the countrymen come up for national duty because no one takes friendly seriously. My only fear is that cricket might also end up like that, where the best talent is only selected for the World Cup, or only makes themselves available for the World Cup, and the bilateral series or the T20 bilateral series has zero meaning. And possibly that would even deteriorate or impact Test cricket in a negative way. Like, I'll give you a South African example. Now, West Indies annihilated South Africa 3-0, and congratulations to the West Indies. But South Africa was missing some of their finest talent, and Quinton de Kock, Hendrik Klaasen, David Miller, Andrik Nokia, Tapesh Shamsi, Keshav Maharaj.
How dare you call somebody a fine talent whose name is not Virat Kohli and Babar Azam? How dare you? I'm going to complain it
Apologies,
to the
apologies,
ICC
apologies.
as well. You
But the
can't.
point is that most of them were playing franchisee cricket. Yeah? They were selected in the CPL. So the point is that bilateral series, the T20 series, had little consequence or little meaning. So nothing. I'm not taking anything away from the West Indies, but the point is that going forward, if your cream is not playing for your country during these lesser known series and they only make themselves available for the bigger tournaments, then is that really merited to have these series? Or let's just go the football way and only have franchisee football or franchisee cricket?
I think that day is also not far the way things are going. But
And,
I
and
don't
to
know.
add to that, I think the reason I brought this up is that somewhere Jay Shah as the ICC chair needs to have that balance in terms of uh, how can you give meaning to country matches versus keep franchisee cricket growing or going rather, but don't make it sort of become like the father and this becomes the kid.
For sure. And then, of course, and then don't end up in multiple marriages, of course, because it
Yeah,
becomes more
exactly.
chaotic. Yeah. So, but yeah, the question that I think the game needs to ask itself, of course, through the voices that are responsible for making it heard, is that Test cricket की पड़ी किसको है? अगर if Test cricket still matters, and I hope it does, well, it does. You and I feel it does, and so do so many, uh, you know, people around us. Then why is enough not being done to ensure that? So, for example, we spoke in one of our episodes, I think quarter of a year back, about the Dean Elgar series, the farewell series. How many Test matches were there against India?
And the Cape Town pitch was a disaster, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't like
So,
really put.
right.
So India
So
won
these
that
are,
test match, but yeah.
of course, India had to win that Test match. It was a much stronger team. It looked like a much stronger team. Also, let's face facts. And Dean Elgar, and I mean, so that's a completely different issue. That the transformation in the Test lineup of South Africa was quite evident. They needed two more Dean Elgars, for example, or some of the other more powerful players to step up. और उस समय वो नहीं available थे क्योंकि it's a transformation period था South Africa का.
Availability
But
थे
I
मतलब
think
थे ही नहीं सिस्टम में ही कोई नहीं.
exactly. So these are things that I mean, if you are the head of a family, Pranay, and you have 7 children, for example, to look after, hypothetically speaking, it can't be that you only focus on 3 and the 4 are ignored. This is the general feeling which would become elevated if enough is not done. I'm not saying that kuch ho hi nahi raha hai. If enough is not done for the other 4 kids, they're not foster kids or anything. They are also, they are members of the same household, the family. So, for instance, but then there have also been some very bright positives, and I would like to mention that under Mr. Jay Shah's tenure, and so we've continued the tradition of going to Zimbabwe and playing cricket there. And hats off to India for doing that. How many times in Australia, England, South Africa, New Zealand, Pakistan have gone to Zimbabwe? How regularly have they gone to Zimbabwe and played bilateral series? So India has done that, and kudos to India for that. Having said that, there are so many teams out there. Everybody needs balanced and fair representation. And at the same time, here is the worry. Here is the concern. This is the predicament as the president of ICC, whether opposed or unopposed. How can you strive for a balanced and fair representation when people in those countries where cricket is still rising, people are still not interested in cricket? So, do you think that in America everybody's interested in cricket? No. How can everybody be interested in cricket? A country which has very much 50 plus states. I think there are 50 states in America. Cricket is being played in New York. Cricket is being played in. So it was there in Miami for sure. So for the longest time we've had those T20 contests that India played against West Indies at Fort Lauderdale, right? So at Florida, cricket has been there. Cricket has reached Los Angeles, but cricket hasn't, and of course Texas now as well, as we saw. I think there were games at Texas as well, right? I think.
So yeah,
Right. So
Florida,
you
Texas,
can't
and
have,
New York, the three went.
right. So it's not that Jay Shah can work a magic wand, not that he looks like Harry Potter, that he can suddenly make an Idaho, the region in America, interested in cricket. But cricket has to spread, and as the head elect of that eminent body, the gatekeeper of the spirit of cricket, the responsibility then becomes to spread cricket in regions with the same financial muscle that is pretty evident in India. And if India are playing well, and if India are doing well, then it's kudos to the hard work of our cricketers as well. It's kudos to the opportunities that we generate, that in which our cricketers participate. How many of the veteran cricketers, for instance, would have perhaps just gone ignored after their India national careers ended, had it not been for these franchise leagues. So we have to see the other side of the coin as well. You and I were closely observing the Indian Veteran Premier League, which happened earlier this year in 2024. So these are very important strategic steps, but at the same time, Mr. Jay Shah, this is a humble plea to you. Please try and ensure that the fabric of cricket, if it is still Test cricket, that does not get eroded. Am I right, Pranay?
We'll have to use Surf Excel and say da bache.
लग ना जाए बस दाग कुछ. Please. Oh, so this was the legendary brand from the Levers International Training and Advertising Service, of which you are one of the legends. Okay.
I'm a legend from the bottom,
I'm legendary.
right or left. But I mean, very
So
well
in
put,
saying
Dave.
that you want to, yeah,
Sorry, can you come again?
go ahead. No,
I'm
nothing.
saying
Go
no,
ahead.
very, very, very well put in terms of making Jay Shah understand that the responsibility is big. I was just thinking while you were talking that, do you remember there was a fine South African talent that was spoken about quite a bit in not so recent past called as Dewal Brevis?
Yes.
And now he's nowhere to be found, nowhere to be talked about.
Yes.
And so what's actually happened is that he was positioned as this guy who would be the next guy for South African Test cricket.
AP de Villiers, the next AP.
Yeah, some not so very, what should I say, intellectually savvy people called him Baby AB also. But the point is that now he's just lost because he doesn't know whether his future is with South African cricket or his future is with franchisee cricket, because he went and started playing for Mumbai Indians and he didn't get his selection in South Africa. Then South Africa took him for some T20 matches where he couldn't perform. So his career has just gone into limbo. And
Right.
the point I'm trying to make here is that if he was regarded as the guy who is the next big thing in South African Test cricket, then in my humble opinion, he shouldn't have got a franchisee experience at the time he did. He should have rather gone and played county cricket in England and tried to harness his cricketing skills better, Test cricketing skills better, and make a positive impact to his game that he definitely merits selection in South Africa's Test league. Versus going and starting to play for Mumbai Indians and then being picked for South Africa's T20 squad, which happened to lose against Australia before the ODI World Cup, and not performing there. And now he's just in the periphery somewhere, but he's obviously not in selection, not in the white ball format, not in the red ball format. So, I mean, I actually don't know what's happened to his career. So
Yeah.
the point
I
I'm
hope
making
he
is
knows.
that
I hope his board knows.
there need to be people who can guide these youngsters in a way to harness their ability that actually suits the potential that that person is offering versus just like going chasing money or fame or whatever. Money and fame will come. Rahul Dravid also got the money and the fame, but he invested his time in a format that he saw has a lot of merit. And kudos, now he's just retired as the Indian coach, and Mr. Gambhir is the one who's taken the mantle.
Yeah.
So these things also need to be considered, and maybe ICC somewhere can play a role in helping the home boards like harness the talent in a way that's best suited to the ability that that particular player has.
Absolutely, Pranay. I think we are at a very precarious situation in the game where, on the one hand, national representation, the concept is, I fear to admit, fading out, if at all that's the right way of putting it. And on the other hand, there are these instant buck making opportunities because so many cricket leagues are happening. So I'm just glad that the cricketers we grew up enjoying and who then later on became our favorites or whatever, if not role models in the 90s, did not have franchise cricket leagues at that point in time. Of course, they would have only become fatter and richer. Um, but at least the nationalistic fervor was still there. So that is why I'm saying that, Pranay, I think जितना जल्दी हम अपने आप को ये बात समझा लें कि अब क्रिकेट वैसा नहीं रहा, तो उससे वो उम्मीद करना, it is difficult. So it is It's like you have to address the elephant in the room because there is an elephant in the room, and the size of the franchise league today is that of the elephant inside the room. While Test cricket and bilaterals are the size of, if not a rodent, then I think of a cow or I don't know, a cheetah, but it's the elephant in terms of the opportunities, the lucrative opportunities of making, of also growing your CV, of being scouted, of putting yourself on a pedestal, which is enormous for you to be scouted by talents, leagues, administrative bodies around the world. And let's also not forget that the other benefit of this is that cricketers who weren't, for example, very successful in their respective national jerseys, but when they get the opportunity, the former players, they become commentators. So it's a win-win situation. That is the classic um, understanding. It's a win-win situation for everybody. Everybody goes home happy. When an IPL occurs in India, everybody gets an employment opportunity. The person who's selling you uh, an aerated drink in the stadium, a person who's selling you snacks, to the person who's commentating, to the girls who are cheering for a particular franchise. I'm talking about the cheer girls who, of course, fill the lives of the Instagram reel obsessed in their own different colors, giving them something to chew about, gladly, not literally, and cricketers and everybody. So everybody goes home happy. So, but again, I think the biggest question is, I could be wrong here, is how much of cricket is too much? I think that is also an issue. For example, we at Point, even if we had a massive office, a massive financial backing, we don't even have a sponsor. And of course, we've called the shots. We've chosen to go on the way of how independent journalism, unsullied by clickbait and yellow journalism fever and that kind of crap. We are not going that way. So if we had the backing and all that, would we still be able to cover the amount of cricket which is happening? I don't think that is possible. Today, I think cricket is being played by easily more than 100 countries in the world. I think that's not a far-fetched number. You rightly pointed out cricket being in Portugal. It has already reached Romania. One of our closest friends is there, Mr. Pavel Florin, who gave us time last year. The funny, incredible, calls himself the world's slowest bowler, but a massively talented cricketer at that, and somebody with a big heart. And so cricket has reached so many places. How much is too much for cricket, and how do you balance Test cricket with this popular growing template of franchise cricket, which, as I said, is a win-win for everybody. So these are some of the delicate areas where the youngest ICC president, we hope, would manage his journey, which has been evocative, successful, exuberant, enterprising, and I don't know any more E alphabets. They're words starting from E rather. And I think with that note, I have said everything that I wanted to say in the podcast. Congratulations to Mr. Jay Shah. And just one final parting thought. Please do the best that you can for the differently abled. Yeah, the blind cricketers also serve the country. They also wear the jersey. There is, by the way, there is also the wheelchair cricket tournaments. People who have been reduced to a wheelchair, they're also playing cricket. There is crazy passion for the game. In 2028, of course, we are going to reach the Olympics. And as Mr. Jay Shah, called it beautifully in the speech, I believe, that he gave, that it's the clarion call for us to be part of the game. And a very intellectually rounded statement there. I just hope that enough is done equally and fairly for everyone. And here's hoping that he'll actually do it. What do you think, Pranay?
Well, I sincerely hope, Dave. And speaking about the E's, there's an E that I would like to add, which is expressive. And I sincerely hope that Jay Shah has his heart in the right place and he expresses in a way that cricket can grow in its entirety. And what I want from the viewers is to express their love for the channel and like, share, and subscribe, because only you guys can help us grow. And Dave and I are just here to give you good content. And we continue to do so, but we would appreciate your support also. So,
तुम्हारी
on that,
हिम्मत कैसे हुई अपने कंटेंट को गुड कहने की? कितने आर्टिकल्स तुमने लिखे हैं रोहित शर्मा के लिए, कितने आर्टिकल्स तुमने लिखे हैं जसप्रीत बुमराह के लिए? नो बट
यार
ऑन अ सीरियस
400
नोट,
लिख चुका हूँ, लेकिन उसमें रोहित शर्मा और जसप्रीत बुमराह सॉरी।
okay, okay, उनको भी ले आओ भाई थोड़ा. But yeah, so I mean, we love Indian cricket, of course, and you should read Cracker of a Piece, which is coming out this weekend, written by our own Aviral Rai, and it is going to be on Kuldeep Yadav. So when we, when we crack light-hearted jokes and banter on Indian cricket, we mean no harm. I mean, we love our cricket team. We've grown up watching it, even if my favorite cricketer still is Brian Lara, and Pranay's favorite cricketer, of course, is not Roston Chase. All right.
So guys, we come back with another episode. Please share, like, subscribe, and help us grow. Thank you. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, Pranay. See you. Bye.